Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another The Deciding Factor Extra. In today's show, we are actually going to just give you our opinions and thoughts on what has taken place in the news, in the media, for, say, the last month or so, because there's been a lot of changes and we've got quite a bit to say. So stay tuned. I'm John.
And I'm Barb.
And together, we form a little show called The Deciding Factor Extra.
Bringing you their thoughts on today's news and current events. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor Extra. With your hosts, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
All right, guys, we're back. So today is the 21st of January, 2021. Gotta remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
But there's been a whole lot of stuff going on in the news over this whole year so far. Like, it's one thing after the other. We now have a new president in office, which, you know, obviously the nation's still split on. There was the riot that we had on the 6th. Riot/protest, whatever way you want to call it. There were so many things that happened with that. So I guess let's start with that one, Barb. What do you think about what happened with the protest/riot on the 6th?
I kind of find it fascinating, I guess. On the one hand, it feels like a terrible idea. And I sort of hate that being someone that voted for Trump. I don't really like being associated with something like that. It just doesn't feel like it did anything. I am fascinated, though, that we keep having these conversations and I am getting chewed out for comparing this riot, this protest, this whatever you want to call it. It seems very non-riotous, to any of the Black Lives Matter protests in the last year.
Oh, yeah. We had that one guy that was saying, how dare you compare it to those two? One was fighting for equality. The other was babies crying.
It's like one of them stood for something real. Like, it's okay to succumb to violence if it stands for something real. And I just found myself thinking, the thing I keep going back to, and I don't know that it was a brilliant response, but I'm wondering, why are we so determined not to have conversations about this? Why aren't we allowed to ask the questions? Why aren't we allowed to say, okay, if the election was totally above board, if the Republicans are wrong on all of this, if these people standing out protesting on January 6th, if everything that they believe is wrong, why are you taking them off the internet? Why, wouldn't they prove themselves wrong just by continuing to talk?
Yeah, so we did the podcast on protests already. And, depending on what your purpose is for your protest, I still don't think violence is going to be the key to solving anything. And in both scenarios, it ended up in some kind of violence. People died, property was damaged, stuff was stolen. I don't agree with it in either side. So to me, it's just black and white. They're both bad. Yeah. The only difference is one went on for virtually a whole year and one went on for how many hours? 10,
right.
12?
And very different press coverage. I think that's probably the thing that is most disturbing to me. It's not even the physical damage done to the building. It's the damage done to people's reputations.
Well, but don't forget all the videos that surfaced afterwards. On Instagram, there were several that I saw, and I think I shared it with you and Alton, is they had people opening the doors, not breaking. People opened it. The security guards opened the door and walked in. The security guards are just standing right there watching them walk by.
Yeah.
That's not breaking and entering if you're letting them in. So then you go to all these people that are getting arrested by the FBI or whatever, calling it terroristic threats. Then, how are those charges going to stick? But the thing that gets me is I did watch that speech that Trump did before the protest went on. He did not say anything about any kind of violence. In fact, he said peaceful protest. So it pisses me off that either side would say that he incited. Now, both him and some Republicans have been leading people on to think that, a lot of stuff took place, but there hasn't been any evidence. So people are getting worked up for no reason. I mean, I have family members that thought all these conspiracies were going to happen. The day of the inauguration, the government's going to take over and arrest a whole bunch of them. No, come on. It didn't happen. I didn't think it was going to happen. It's just false hope, and it gets kind of annoying. So,
it's funny though. I wish that I wish that it was easier to debunk all the conspiracy theories, because at this point I find myself thinking, do I think that it was a fraudulent election? Maybe. Like, I still think that it was the right thing to do for the transfer of power to happen. All of that. Mr. Biden is president now. I'm on board. I'm sad about it, but it's what it is. But the people that have the truth on their side don't generally have to so frantically shut up the other side. It seems like if what you're saying is true, you don't have to get rid of everyone that is saying something different. So I think, help me as a citizen to believe that everything is above board about this election. Allow people back on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Like, let me hear their voice. Let me decide.
Yeah. I mean, laws are laws. You're supposed to abide by them. So, to both of those protests that have gone violent, destructive, sorry. I mean, it is what it is. It's, like you said, the election, was it fraud or not? I mean, there's a lot of people that say they have a lot of evidence. I saw the video of them pulling out a tub of whatever from, I think it was Georgia. And that's really sketchy. Mm-hmm. If that's nothing and they've looked at it, investigated, and they can't get anything from it, then it's like, it's time to move on with life. Yeah. But I've seen these memes after Biden got in office, and one of them is like, oh yes, we finally have peace in the world now with Joe in the office. What? Half of America doesn't want him in office. Yeah. There's not peace. The only peace that has come of this is now the Democrats have gotten what they wanted. So now they can't whine and complain like when we had somebody in our office. Because if you look back when Bush was in office, he was the worst guy ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way it always is. Yeah, the Republican candidate is always the worst guy ever. And whatever Democrat gets in office, oh, it's the best thing in the world. It's only the best thing because we don't have to hear y'all whining and crying all the time.
Or we better not, because you got the House, you got the Senate, you got the presidency. I don't want to hear.
But you'll see, you'll see how the Republicans handle this. There'll be some whining and crying, but not nearly as much. And we're not going to be like, he's not my president. Shut up.
Well, along those lines, I did find what I think is a fairly fantastic list on ways to cope when your candidate didn't win. You want to hear these?
Hit me with them.
Okay. So it can be tough to live in a country where you don't like the president. Luckily, our friends on the left have shown us how to handle this situation with grace and class over the last 4 years. So here are 15 easy ways to cope when you don't like the president. 1, put on a neon vest and shriek at the sky. 2, accuse him of colluding with a foreign adversary with no evidence while sleeping with a Chinese spy. 3, impeach him at least 73 times. 4, riot in every major city, set fires, and loot for weeks on end, like 6 months going strong. But whatever you do not riot at the Capitol or you're a traitor. 5, make every late night show joke some variation of "your president bad." 6, have all comedians stop doing comedy and instead spend every waking minute tweeting at the president with some sort of expletive-laden Braveheart speech. Get Stephen King to do it too. 7, immediately assume half the country is secretly Nazis. 8, when dining out, scream at all the other diners that we now live under a dictator between bites. 9, take 12 months worth of hormonal birth control at once and scream into your camera. 10, get a permanent face mask with "Stay 6 feet away" printed on it. 11, keep all your friends and family that agree with you close enough to hear the echo in the room. 12. Research every actor and musician to make sure they all align perfectly with everything you believe before enjoying any of their art. 13. Tell everyone that diversity only counts if it's for your side. 14. Keep the news on 24 hours a day and never leave the house. Always be on Twitter and your phone. Make sure you know everything the president is doing at all times. 15. Weep uncontrollably until 2024. That's from the Babylon Bee. I think it's fairly inspired.
I mean, I'm not gonna stress about the next 4 years. It's life. We're gonna move on. I mean, stuff is gonna happen. The only thing that really gets me on some of that is, there were some orders or executive orders that were put into place, and right away it's like they're getting undone. Well, that's not gonna unite us. That's not gonna fix things. It's really Congress and the Senate need to get together and probably finalize some of that stuff, like the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, that's just going back and forth, and we got to do something to settle that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And we as citizens probably need to start by this week going and reading the Constitution.
Where did you get that list from?
The Babylon Bee.
Babylon Bee. You like that thing too much.
I do. It is seriously the only way to absorb news these days. It's satire that feels kind of not so satirical anymore.
So what about that second impeachment that happened? What are your thoughts on that?
Let it die. Oh my goodness. He's out of office. What do you want to happen? And again, go back to the Constitution. There's only so much that they can make happen. He's out of office.
But see, now it's become this weapon that's always going to be used. I don't want the Republicans doing it. I don't want the Democrats doing it. An impeachment needs to really be for something very drastic.
And you can prove.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys that they always tried to point out was if it's not a high crime or high misdemeanor, it doesn't qualify. So if he goes on TV, speaks his mind, and then doesn't say, hey, let's go riot, I'm sorry, that doesn't qualify as a high crime, because there were other cases in our history where people really incited violence and they got away. So why should he? But he's also out of office, so it should be done with. But
well, it should be.
They're skipping all these legal processes that were put into place, and I really wish they would just stop the crap. I mean, I don't even. If you take the impeachment back to Clinton, right? Mm-hmm. He got it for getting a blowjob in the office and then lying about it under oath. Yeah, come on,
young intern. Yeah.
Y'all got too much time on your hands. Move on with life. He didn't affect the country. He affected his personal life and personal life of someone there in the White House. And so guess what? They can figure it out. They can go to court between themselves. Country doesn't need to be involved in that bull crap. So
yeah.
What else?
Go back to the Constitution. You got to read the Constitution.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this short segment of the Deciding Factor Extra. Stay tuned for other ones where we play games or we give you more news updates. And I think we're going to try to get Dr. Gold back on because she's got some drama involved in that protest too. So Dr. Gold, if you're listening, we want to hear from you. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Say bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the Deciding Factor Extra, giving you food for thought on real-life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget to check out our website, thedecidingfactorpodcast.com, and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and keep an open mind.